Good afternoon, dear friends. I am Evely, and today I will tell you a true story. Enjoy your viewing. The Vatican City, a sovereign enclave in the heart of Rome, had always held an air of divine mystery. Beneath the grandeur of St. Peter's Basilica and the whispers of centuries-old secrets stored in the Apostolic Archive, there was something darker, something few dared to acknowledge. Those who stumbled too close to it were silenced, erased from history as if they had never existed. It was in the dim glow of a stormy December evening that Father Matteo, a junior priest with an insatiable curiosity, found himself wandering the labyrinthine corridors of the Vatican's lesser-known sections. The thunder outside seemed distant compared to the hum of ancient energy that vibrated through the marble walls. His superior had warned him about venturing too far, especially near the papal chambers, but something unexplainable drew him forward. Rumors of the Custodian had reached his ears from the whispers of the older clergy. Some said it was an angel that watched over the church in secret, ensuring its divine mission remained uncorrupted. Others, with voices trembling, suggested it was no angel at all but a monstrous entity, a relic of a darker time, masquerading as a holy protector. As Matteo approached a towering iron door that seemed out of place among the Renaissance splendor, the air grew cold. A faint, unnatural glow seeped from beneath the door's threshold. He hesitated. The temperature drop wasn't just physical. It felt as though his soul was recoiling, warning him against what lay beyond. He reached out, trembling, to touch the door. The moment his fingers grazed the iron, a jolt shot through him, and the door creaked open on its own. Inside was a cavernous chamber, circular in design, with an altar at its center. The altar wasn't dedicated to Christ or any saint, but to something far older, carved with symbols that made Matteo's stomach churn. A massive statue loomed above it, depicting a creature neither fully human nor beast. It had elongated limbs, wings folded like a bat's, and hollow eyes that seemed to watch him. Matteo felt a presence. His instincts screamed for him to run, but his legs refused to move. A voice echoed through the chamber, low and resonant, vibrating within his skull. Who dares disturb the Custodian? He turned sharply, his breath catching in his throat. From the shadows emerged a figure draped in the flowing robes of a cardinal, but its face was obscured by a mask. No, not a mask, a pale visage that seemed almost porcelain. Its eyes were empty sockets, yet Matteo felt them boring into him. I meant no harm, Matteo stammered. I was lost. Lost. The figure's lips didn't move, yet the voice echoed louder, accompanied by an inhuman growl beneath the words. You cannot be lost in the house of God. You have come seeking truth. Matteo's mind raced. The figure stepped closer, its movements unervingly smooth, as though it floated rather than walked. Do you know what truth costs, little priest? It hissed. The air grew heavier, pressing against Matteo's chest. Please, he gasped. I don't understand. The figure raised a bony hand, and the chamber seemed to ripple, reality bending like heat waves. Matteo was suddenly overwhelmed by visions. Popes screaming in silence, their faces frozen in terror. Cardinals consumed by shadows as they knelt before the monstrous statue, and the image of the creature itself, alive and writhing, its wings stretching to engulf the chamber. The Vatican, the voice whispered, is a facade, a kingdom not of light but shadow, and I am its king. The visions ended abruptly, and Matteo collapsed to his knees, sobbing. The figure loomed over him. You wish to know the secrets of this place. Now you must pay the price. Before Matteo could protest, the figure touched his forehead with an icy finger. Pain shot through him, his screams echoing through the chamber. When he awoke, he was lying on the cold stone floor of the Vatican's main library. The chamber was gone, as though it had never existed. Over the following weeks, Matteo found himself haunted. He would hear whispers in empty halls, see shadows move in unnatural ways, and feel an oppressive weight when he prayed. His health began to deteriorate, and his fellow priests started avoiding him, their eyes filled with unease. One night, unable to bear the torment, Matteo confided in Father Luca, a trusted mentor. After hearing Matteo's account, Luca's face grew pale. "You've seen the Custodian," Luca whispered. "The Vatican protects its secrets, Matteo. You must not speak of this to anyone else." "But what is it?" Matteo pressed. Luca hesitated before answering. "A deal was made long ago. A creature of immense power resides beneath the Vatican, granting us influence and protection in exchange for sacrifices." Matteo's stomach turned. "Sacrifices? What kind?" "Those who ask too many questions," Luca said grimly. "And now you've seen too much." Before Matteo could respond, the lights in the room flickered. The temperature plummeted, and a deep growl echoed through the halls. Luca's eyes widened with terror. "It's here," he whispered. "Run." The walls trembled as a shadow crept into the room, stretching unnaturally like liquid darkness. Matteo stumbled to his feet and fled, but the shadow was faster, consuming Luca in an instant. His scream was cut short, replaced by an eerie silence. Matteo ran through the Vatican's corridors, his mind a whirlwind of fear and disbelief. The shadows seemed to follow him, twisting and growing, their tendrils reaching for him. He burst into the basilica, hoping the sanctity of the holy site would protect him. Instead, he found the space completely empty. The familiar grandeur of the church now felt alien, the towering statues casting long, menacing shadows in the flickering candlelight. As he approached the altar, he felt the air grow heavy again. He turned and saw the figure from the chamber standing behind him, its hollow eyes burning with malice. "You cannot escape," it said. "The Custodian demands its due." Matteo fell to his knees, weeping. "Please, I didn't mean to disturb anything. I only wanted to serve God." The figure's laugh was low and guttural. "And you will serve, but not as you imagined." The shadows closed in around Matteo, swallowing him whole. Weeks later, the Vatican announced Father Matteo's sudden disappearance, attributing it to an unexpected transfer to a remote mission in South America. Those who knew him questioned the odd circumstances, but their curiosity soon faded. In the Vatican's depths, the Custodian slumbered once more, waiting for its next visitor. Father Matteo awoke in darkness, his body frozen in a cold, damp void. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and an otherworldly hum vibrated around him, filling his skull with a low, relentless drone. He tried to scream, but his voice didn't carry. Instead, the sound seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive blackness, leaving him in suffocating silence. Slowly, his senses sharpened. The darkness shifted, revealing faint glowing symbols etched into the walls, the same unholy runes he had seen on the altar. The room pulsed as though alive, the symbols flickering in time with a slow, deliberate heartbeat. Matteo tried to move but realized his limbs were bound by something warm and pulsing, like muscle or sinew. He looked down and recoiled in horror. The floor was not stone but flesh. He struggled, his breath coming in shallow gasps, but the sinewy tendrils held him fast. A low growl resonated from the darkness, the sound rising and falling like a chant. Matteo recognized the language as one he had seen in forbidden texts, Enochian, the tongue of angels. But the words weren't prayers. They were curses, invocations to something far beyond human comprehension. Then the voice came again. It was deeper, more resonant, and more chilling than before. "You are awake." Matteo's heart thundered in his chest. "Please," he whispered, "let me go." "You are already mine," the voice replied. The darkness rippled, and the creature emerged. Not fully formed but an amalgamation of shifting shadows, bones, and wings. Its face was incomplete, a grotesque blend of human and monstrous features, its hollow eyes leaking a viscous black fluid. "Why me?" Matteo gasped. "What have I done?" "You sought the truth," the Custodian said. "Few have the arrogance to pry where they do not belong. Fewer still survive it." Matteo's mind raced, his thoughts a blur of fear and regret. "What are you?" he asked, his voice trembling. "I am the first," the Custodian replied. "Before the church, before Rome. I was here, and I will remain long after your kind has turned to dust." As the custodian spoke, Matteo's surroundings began to shift. The fleshy walls receded, replaced by visions of the Vatican through the ages. He saw ancient priests kneeling before the creature, their faces pale and drawn, as they offered sacrifices in exchange for power. He saw wars averted, plagues halted, and empires built, all under the creature's silent influence. "This place is not holy," the custodian continued. "It is a vessel, a conduit for my will. Every pope, every cardinal, every saint has known this truth. They serve me, not your God." Matteo shook his head, refusing to believe it. "You're lying," he spat. "The church serves God. We protect his flock." The custodian laughed, a sound that echoed like shattering glass. "Do you think your God cares for this world? He abandoned you long ago. It was I who offered your church its power, its influence. Without me, it would crumble into irrelevance." The visions grew more intense. Matteo saw the apostolic archives in flames, the forbidden texts guarded so fiercely now destroyed in a desperate attempt to hide the truth. He saw exorcisms performed not to banish demons but to imprison them, adding to the Vatican's collection of supernatural weapons. He saw the Sistine Chapel ceiling painted not as an act of devotion but as a ward, its intricate designs a binding spell to keep the custodian from fully emerging into the mortal realm. "You see now," the custodian said. "You are not the savior. You are the sacrifice." The tendrils tightened around Matteo, pulling him toward the creature. His screams echoed as the darkness consumed him, but just as he felt himself slipping away, a blinding light erupted in the chamber. A voice boomed, cutting through the suffocating void. "Enough!" The light coalesced into a figure robed in white, carrying a staff that glowed with holy fire. The custodian recoiled, its form flickering and twisting as though in agony. "Another interloper," it growled, its voice laced with disdain. "Have you come to save him, shepherd?" The figure stepped forward, and Matteo's breath caught in his throat. It was the Pope, not the frail old man he had seen at Mass but a radiant being, his mortal form stripped away to reveal an otherworldly presence. His eyes burned with divine light, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. "You have overstepped, custodian," the Pope said. "This one is not yours to claim." The custodian hissed, its wings spreading wide. "You dare defy our pact?" "The pact binds you," the Pope replied, slamming his staff into the ground. "You may influence, you may deceive, but you cannot take what is not freely given." The chamber shook violently, and the runes on the walls flared to life. The custodian screamed, its form unraveling as the light consumed it. Matteo felt the tendrils release him, and he collapsed to the ground, gasping for air. When Matteo awoke again, he was in his quarters, the soft light of dawn filtering through the window. His body ached, and his mind swirled with fragmented memories. He sat up, his eyes drawn to a single object on his nightstand, a small ornate key inscribed with symbols he recognized from the chamber. He picked it up, feeling its weight in his hand. A voice echoed faintly in his mind, the custodian's final words before the light had banished it. "You cannot hide the truth forever." In the weeks that followed, Matteo tried to resume his duties, but the Vatican felt different. He noticed subtle signs of the custodian's influence, cryptic symbols hidden in artwork, fleeting shadows that moved against the light, and the ever-present feeling of being watched. The other priests seemed oblivious, their smiles hollow, their prayers empty. One night, unable to bear the tension, Matteo used the key. It led him to a door he had never seen before, deep within the apostolic archives. Behind it lay rows of ancient tomes and artifacts, each radiating an aura of unease. At the center of the room stood a pedestal bearing a single book. Its cover was blackened and cracked, its pages filled with writing that seemed to shift and writhe. Matteo hesitated, then reached out, compelled by an unseen force. As his fingers brushed the cover, a single thought pierced his mind. The custodian was not defeated. It was waiting, and Matteo had just opened the door. Thank you for watching. Support me with a like and a subscribe. Thank you. See you in another video. Bye.